and welcome back to another episode of Announcing the Game, where we'll try to share some of our experience to help to make you a better public address announcer. And by the way, thank you for all of your kind feedback on all of our other tutorials, and we hope that this one will be just as helpful and that you will continue to share your feedback with us. I'm Tom Winicki. I've been a public address announcer at the high school level in New York State for Fayetteville Manlius High School for many of their sports, as well as for a number of Section 3 championships in Central New York, along with still being the public address announcer for the New York State Public High School Athletic Association championships for girls lacrosse and for football. Now, I'm primarily a public address announcer at Syracuse University of the Atlantic Coast Conference and for Colgate University of the Patriot League. And for those of you still familiar with NASPA, the National Association of Sports Public Address Announcers, I was their Public Address Announcer of the Year for 2017. Today, let's focus on track and field. What we'll go over is applicable to any meet, whether that be indoors or outdoors. We'll go over things that you need to take care of before you get to the meet, as well as all that you'll be expected to do once the meet begins. Now, in talking with some state track and field chairpeople, some coaches, and other announcers, a common thought was that we as public address announcers are more important to the competing athletes in track and field than in any other sport. Now, you've heard me say in previous tutorials that we need to say what needs to be said and then get out of the way of the game. And this holds true for track and field as well. There's a flow to every contest that we announce. Our job is not to disrupt that flow, in this instance, at a track and field meet. So let's get into the starting blocks and start with that pre-meet preparation. When I walk into a competition site, I want the site supervisor to see me walk in and immediately think to themselves, oh, phew, good, Tom's here. I don't have to worry about the public address today. Now, that's not my ego speaking. Well, maybe it is a little bit, but I want them to know that I'll be as prepared as possible for them and that I will do my part to ensure that their event goes off smoothly. Now, do you know rule number 1 for public address announcers? What about rule number 2? Rule number 1 is always get the names right, always. Rule number 2, never break rule number 1. So, how do we go about getting all of the competitors' names right? First, we need some rosters. But where do we get them? Most all colleges and a lot of high schools now will post their rosters online. Now it's just as simple as printing them off. I've even seen some college rosters that you can sort by event, which makes things even easier for us on meet day. And more colleges are adding audio files to their online rosters. Look for an ear icon next to each athlete's name. Clicking on that icon opens up an audio file of the athlete saying their own name and their own hometown. Now, I realize this is an extra expense for colleges, but it's a tremendous resource for us. And whoever made the decision to add this feature to their rosters should get a big raise, if you're asking me. Now, if you can't find a roster online, and this will most likely happen to you at the high school level, the next step is to call the school's athletic office and talk to the secretary. They'll be more than happy to electronically send you a roster. And one good thing about talking to the secretary in that office is that they'll probably already know the kids on the roster. They'll be more than happy to help you with pronunciations. Ask them if they wouldn't mind you reading through the roster with them. Now that saves us a lot of time and takes us away from talking to the coaches before the meet starts. And a nice side effect of this is that if you announce multiple sports at your school, you start to develop a relationship with this person. If you've talked to these secretaries multiple times, they start to see that you do things to ensure that every visiting team will be treated respectfully by you as the public address announcer, no matter the sport. Now, if you can't for any reason be able to connect with someone before meet day for pronunciations, then your only other option is to take care of that on the day of the meet. When preparing for a college meet, I want to stay away from a head coach when it comes to getting pronunciations. They just have enough on their minds as it is. If I can find an athletic trainer or the sports information director, that SID, that would be my first choice. Sometimes contacting that SID pre-season will take care of all of this with a 5 or 10 minute phone call. Then we don't have to track people down before the meet. Now, if this just can't be done, just like for a high school meet, you'll have to get this information on meet day. For every meet, whether that be a high school or a college meet, there'll be some form of a coaches meeting beforehand. And now for high schools, this could be a pretty informal thing, but it's our responsibility to talk to the home coach or whoever is ultimately in charge. So we as public address announcers get to be a part of that meeting before each meet if we still need those pronunciations. If you got yourself those rosters ahead of time and you read through them, you can pick out the names that you're just not sure of. Work with that home coach or the meet's head official to be part of that meeting. Here's your opportunity to ask specifically about those names to the coaches that you need to talk to. If you're working a bigger meet, say a sectional, a regional, or a state championship, find that lead official. You may hear them referred to as the clerk of the course. Let them know that you'd like to meet with certain coaches right after that coaches meeting to go over certain names. Then that person will direct those specific coaches to you once that meeting breaks up. We've done all the legwork. We have all the names right for our meet. That secretary at a high school meet or that SID for a college meet has heard from you a couple of times now and respects what you do for their athletes. Now, take your preparation up a notch. Start saving rosters from year to year. Why? Well, if you see someone on a roster with a tough name to pronounce and you see that they're only a junior, you could pretty much say that you'll have them again next year. Or if meet sites rotate from year to year and that junior you found the pronunciation for won't be at your school next year, but you see that a sophomore just won the 3,200 meters, save that piece of paper with that roster on it and your name pronunciations on it, or add it to your digital notes to that electronic file, so you can pull it out in the future when you need it again. Or maybe your school is hosting the league meet at the end of the season, and that runner, thrower, or jumper will be back for that meet. Now you have that tough name already figured out. When someone's asked if you know how to pronounce that name because everybody else butchered it all season long, you can say, nope, I got it, it's Winicky. I've got it, I'm all set, thank you though. Teams will notice, and your reputation just went up a notch with those coaches. Most every college and more high school meets now use electronic services to both collect entries and to post results. Athletic.net, LeonTiming.com, and MileSplit.com are 3 examples of websites where you can go to find entries and results for track and field meets. Now these can be especially helpful at the high school level. Now these 3 are just 3 examples. Check around where your school competes to see if something like this is used and how you can access it to announce entrants and results. So instead of using a high school's paper alphabetical roster, you can see which kids are in which race ahead of time. Now another one that's used by the NCAA is TFRSS.org. It stands for Track and Field Results Reporting System. This one is mandated by the NCAA for their meets. This company is hired for each meet to take care of timing and results. Now, many high schools will run meets now with boys and girls from the same school competing at the same site on the same day. How we go about getting pronunciations and entrants remains the same, whether that's paper and pencil or online. It's just twice as much, and that's really no problem at all. For bigger meets that use electronic formats to collect entries and post results, they may go a step further and even post lane assignments for each heat. Now, getting a hold of these ahead of time helps us once the meet starts. So now that we have all the names down pat, and maybe also even know the lane assignments, we're ready for the meet to begin. Next though, we need to know the order of events, both for track events and for field events. Now remember at the outset of this tutorial, I said how we're more important to the athletes than in any other sport? Well, yeah, I suppose a basketball player needs to know when they have 4 personal fouls, or a football player needs to know that that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty is their first or second of the game, or whether a lacrosse penalty is released or not, but those announcements that we make are somewhat unofficial. The scorebook is what's official, or the clock, or the referee is what's official. For track and field, we have the job of keeping that event flow going. Remember, I mentioned this earlier. We help to keep everything on schedule. The way for us to effectively do this is by making calls for events. There'll be a preset order of events that you would follow. Now, this may vary from state to state or from indoor to outdoor meets, so be sure to find this for the state or region that you are announcing for. Typically, they're done by saying something like this. First call for the 100 meters, second call for the 110 meter high hurdles, and third and final call for the 4x800 meter relay. Now, in general terms, this could mean that the 4x8 will start in 5 minutes. The 110 meter high hurdles will start in 10 minutes, and the 100 meters will start in 15 minutes. You may announce meets where the third and final call means that competitors should now be at the starting line. Now, when you say this, for example, you're telling the teams in the 4x8 that they should be finished with their warm-ups and should be checking in at the starting line. Runners in the 110 meter high hurdles should be finishing their warm-ups because they are next on the track once the 4x800 meter relay finishes. And competitors in the 100 meters should now be beginning their warm-ups or have already begun for their race. Now, once the 4x800 meter relay finishes, you can now go down the order of events and say first call 200 meters, second call for the 100 meters, and third and final call for the 110 meter high hurdles. Now, there is something to be aware of when making calls for a hurdle race though, and we'll get into that a bit later. Whatever the timing is for these calls for each event, the point is to work with the meet officials so your calls equate to the schedule for the events going off. Typically, at a local dual meet or maybe a weekend invitational, events are on what's called a rolling schedule. Some state championship meets will use this format as well. Now, simply put, it's when the first race finishes, the next race in the order of events is called to the starting line. Now, you may be asked to do this beforehand by yourself. But more often than not, someone else will call up to us to tell us when to announce these calls. Whether it's on us or somebody tells us when, it's up to us to find out when and how to announce this next event. Just like announcing a basketball game, we don't announce a personal foul until the official finishes reporting it to the table, or we don't announce a penalty in football until the lead official finishes administering the call on the field. We don't announce the results of a race or call a race to the finish line until someone tells us. It's always better to be a little late but accurate than being quick and being wrong. Now, remember that coaches meeting before the meet that you use to get pronunciations? Coordinating with the meet officials on when to call for different events is another thing to hammer out at this meeting. You may be asked to exchange cell phone numbers so the official at the finish line or the clerk of the course that I mentioned earlier can call or text you as to when to call the next race. There may be a two-way radio or a walkie-talkie set up for this. Either way, we as the PA announcers need to find out this procedure, not only for calling races to the start, first call, second call, third call, but also for announcing race results later on. Other states or regions may work off a hard and fast schedule. They may want to run the girls 100 meter finals at 11:45, then the boys 100 meter finals at 11:55, followed by the boys 110 meter high hurdles at 12:10. When this type of schedule is used, they may schedule a break or a pre-planned open time built into the schedule. And this has a couple of purposes, but mainly, if things get behind schedule, this break in the schedule is used to let the meet catch up, so to speak. Now, one important thing for us to be aware of with the tightly timed schedule like this is if the order of events has the 110-meter high hurdles after the 100 meters, the hurdles have to be set up on the track after the 100 meters. So we can't call the 110-meter high hurdle boys to the starting line if the hurdles aren't on the track yet. Now this goes back to that flow of the meet. You don't want to get the athlete in the hurdles all warmed up and ready to go if the hurdles aren't even on the track. This just wouldn't be fair to that athlete. Now remember how I said earlier in track and field that the PA announcer is more important to the athletes than any other sport? Well, this is just another example. In this case, your announcement should include the time schedule for each race so the athletes know exactly when to get to the starting line. It would sound something like this. Final call for the boys 100-meter final. Second call for the boys 100-meter high hurdles. That 110-meter high hurdle race is still on schedule to begin at 12:10. Now, on the other hand, if the meet is running behind schedule, your announcements to call for each race would reflect that. It could sound something like this. Attention, all boys in today's 100-meter finals. Your race time start has been pushed back to 12:05. Please adjust your warm-ups accordingly. Competitors in today's boys 110-meter high hurdles, your race is now scheduled for 12:20. Please pay attention to the public address announcement and to your coaches for further time changes if they are warranted. Now the athletes in the 110-meter high hurdles know exactly when to start. They know they're getting close, but you also announce the time of the start so they know exactly when to get to the starting line. This is just another example how we are more important to the athletes in track and field than in any other sport. So, the meet's underway. Everything looks like it's going smoothly, and hey, it's even on schedule. So now what? Our next duty of the meet is to announce event results. How we get them varies, but the bottom line is we have to have a system in place to get them to us. Now remember that coaches meeting we talked about earlier? Add announcing event results to your to-do list for this meeting. Now you may work at a meet where everything is done with paper and pencil. Those result sheets need to be brought up to us. Now it's on us to find out who will be doing that. Find that person before the meet and introduce yourself. See what they look like so you can recognize them during the meet. Show them where you're going to be. Meet with the clerk of the course. Again, this could be a hired official or it might be one of the home coaches. No matter who they are, connect with that person prior to the meet. Find out if a sheet with those top 3 finishers will be given to you, or if it's a bigger meet, will you get the top 6 or 7, or will you just be given a bunch of heat sheets to search through? Or will you just be given a sheet with the final results? Just know ahead of time so you know what to expect and what you will be getting. Or you might be working at a meet that does everything online. Many places we said are going in this direction, and they'll use those web platforms we mentioned earlier, like athletic.net, milesplit.com, leontiming.com, or some other online platform. Now, I alluded to these types of sites earlier when I talked about seeing entries prior to the meet. These services, as we said, are also used to post results in real time. Now, when using these resources, schools will hire another official or an FAT, a fully automatic timer, to receive, compile, and post individual event results as they finish in real time. At an NCAA meet, this would be that TFRSS.org that I mentioned earlier. Now, this information is then immediately posted online. Now, if a system like this is in place at your meet, you'll need to find out how to gain access to this online information to fuel your announcements. For example, when the state of Michigan runs their high school state meets, they'll ask if the PA announcer can bring their own laptop to access this information, or do they have to provide one for them? Most of the time they say the announcers have a laptop of their own to bring. My point is, with all of this, that's no matter how the results are collected and distributed to us, it's on us to find out what the procedure is and how we can plug into it. Now remember, folks, we're announcing a track and field meet. What about the field events? I was a discus thrower in high school and in college. I competed for many years after college in open and masters events, so I got a special place in my heart for these events. So personally, I don't want them overlooked. Now these events, shot put, discus, long jump, triple jump, high jump, pole vault, the hammer and the javelin may be held in different areas away from the track. So again, how is this information reported to us? How do we know when to make first, second, and third calls for these events? Just like earlier, it's on us to find out. Is there a lead field event official with a cell phone or a radio that we need to connect with? Many high schools, as we said, will run both their boys and girls at the same meet. So what's the order of the field events? Is the girls' shot put going on at the same time as the boys' discus? Is the same thing set up for high jump and pole vault? When they're finished, do they just flip-flop? Will an official call up to us saying that the long jump's now finished and to make calls for the triple jump, telling those triple jumpers to get to the pit and get their warm-ups and run-throughs complete? Be sure to ask the official when the triple jump is scheduled to start. This lets you say that they should be heading over to warm up and that the event will begin in, say, 10 minutes. So those jumpers have to get over there quickly. Now, one thing to consider, especially at a high school meet, is that the long jumpers and triple jumpers are often the sprinters as well. Where are these events scheduled in relation to the 100 and the 200 meters? Will the jumping pit stay open all meet long so the sprinters can go back and forth? Now, it's important to us to realize that we don't make these decisions. We just need to know what those decisions are so we can make the correct calls at the correct time. Let's go back for a second when it comes to announcing results and combining that with what I referred to earlier about being important to the athletes more than any other sport. There's a flow to a track meet. And this is like any other sporting event that we work. We don't want to step on the action. Again, in other tutorials, you've heard me say about saying what needs to be said and then getting out of the way of the game. And the same holds true for track and field. We don't want to announce results for the 4x800 meter relay while the 100 meter dash is getting into the starting blocks. We don't want to announce results of the 800 meters with a 200 meter in progress on the track. There are built-in times in a track meet in the order of events for us to announce results. You'll have 10 or 15 minutes or so to make result announcements during the 3,000 or 3,200 meters, or while the hurdles are being set up or torn down on a track. You could probably get away with reading other results during races down to the 1,500 meters, or maybe a 1,000 meter race, but nothing shorter. Look for dead times in a track meet that you can use to announce results for previous events. Ask yourself, can I make this announcement before anything else gets ready to go? Next, find out if there's someone up in the press box with you who's compiling race and event results with times and distances. Connect with these folks as well beforehand so you can not only announce individual event results, but also a running score of the meet. Now, if you're able to announce that partial score, be sure to start this announcement by saying something like this. Partial score for today's meet. This score includes events completed: 4x800 meter relay, 110 meter high hurdles, 100 meters, and the 4x200 meter relay. It's not really appropriate for us to keep score ourselves. That's somebody else's job. Our job is just to report what the score is when it becomes available, and also to make sure that it's understood that this is a partial score with only a certain number of events having been completed. As individual races come to the starting line, it's a good touch to announce the runners in each lane. For races 400 meters and down, to announce each runner in each school. Now, to do this, you need to know those lane assignments. Whether you get that online readout ahead of time or it's sent up to you before each race really doesn't matter. Just find out beforehand. For big meets, sectional, regional, state, or national competitions, competitors will wear numbers. For the sprinting events, 100 meters up to 400, numbers will stick to their hips. Those refer to their lanes. A separate bib number is worn in front to identify the individual number. For distance races, 800 meters and up, including relays, the hip numbers represent seeding. Again, bib numbers in front identify the individual runner or the individual team. So you can use this to read off numbers for each lanes. Now, if you're far away, just make sure you've got a set of binoculars. Or remember those meets that do everything electronically that you found out how to tap into? Use this to read off those lane assignments. For smaller meets, regular season dual or triangular meets, or maybe a weekend invitational, lane assignments are determined right before the meet. The home team may get lanes 1, 3, 5, and 7, and the visitors may get lanes 2, 4, 6, and 8. Now, if you know each runner's names, then announce that. It's a good touch. Runners and their parents, well, they just enjoy hearing that. Think of that as reading the starting lineups for any other sport, but for track and field, it's for each event. Now, if you don't have access to those names, it's fine to announce something like this. Now on the track, the boys' 200-meter dash. The hometown Hornets are in lanes 1, 3, 5, and 7, while our guests from Cazenovia will be in lanes 2, 4, 6, and 8. Now, if you're really into the sport of track and field, a little extra work and prep on your part can really go to the atmosphere of a track and field meet. For the track events, there's a spot on the track where if a runner falls before that mark, the race is restarted. If someone falls after that point, the race continues. If you want, find that spot on the track for each event. Once you see that the runners have cleared that mark, you can announce that the race is now official. Again, just like anything else that we announce, clear this with the meet officials ahead of time before going forward. At a local meet, you may be aware of the school track and field records, or that your team's 400-meter runner is close to that record, or that your school's discus thrower just broke a long-standing school record. Making an announcement like this adds to the atmosphere and professionalism of your track meet. Now be sure though, again, to confirm any announcements like this with your team's coaches ahead of time. The last thing you want to do is to announce a record that really isn't a record. In a bigger championship meet, you may be able to get a hold of a program that may contain those records or past champions. Again, clear this with a meet director ahead of time if it's okay with them. Then you can add that to your pre-race introduction for those races. You can also add, with the blessing of the meet organizers, things like section, regional, or state records. You may see that a runner in the 100-meter dash has the fastest time in the state this year, or that a runner, jumper, or thrower is a returning champion. These are just good things to add to your announcements. If you know that a college kid's time just qualified them for the nationals, announce that as well. These are just classy and professional things to do. Something else that we could announce, again, run this by the meet organizers ahead of time, is to announce things like who's leading or how many laps to go. Now, be careful when doing something like this. Be absolutely sure you know this information before saying anything. For example, in a race like a 3,200 meter, the leader may have 3 laps to go while someone else may have 4 or 5 laps to go. We never want to do anything that may confuse a competitor. So if we are to do something like this, it would have to include a direct reference to the leader. It would need to include things like this. Our leader, Joe Smith from East High School, now has 3 laps remaining in the 3,200 meter run. Again, be sure to clear this with your meet organizers ahead of time. Some races will ring a bell for the final lap of races 1,500 meters on up. They may want you to wait for that bell lap to say the leader has 1 lap to go. Personally, I would do this for races 1,500 meters and longer. It wouldn't make sense for me to do it for shorter races, 800 meters on down. For me, these races just happen too fast for something like this for me to say. Again, as I've said more than once previously, clear this with the meet officials ahead of time. Ask them exactly how they want you to announce the finish of each race. They may in fact want you to do that for shorter races as the runners approach the finish line. Now, I've talked to some announcers who do this for all races. They feel it adds to the meet. Others I've talked to don't do that, saying it distracts the runners in the meet. Either way, we need to realize that we are working for the track meet. those meet organizers, so we announce the meet the way they want it said. To wrap things up here, we as public address announcers at a track and field meet have an important job. Some will refer to us as another meet official. We can make or break a track and field meet. If we give the wrong information, or the wrong results, or the wrong call at the wrong time, we can really mess things up. Conversely though, by working in concert with meet officials and the coaches, our work helps to keep things running smoothly. We can ensure that things stay on schedule and that everyone, that's coaches, athletes, and fans, are accurately informed about the order of events and the results of those athletes' efforts. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Announcing the Game and that this video helped make you a bit more comfortable about announcing track and field. Please keep sending those constructive comments to me at my email on the screen, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment. We're always looking for feedback as we look to produce more of these free tutorials. Well, I'm Tom Winicki. Thanks for watching another episode of Announcing the Game, and I look forward to hearing you on the mic.